So my name is Ragnar Tornquist. I make games, I tell stories, and I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you guys. I can't really see you because there's a strong light, but I'm hoping, there's a whole bunch of you. I was kind of worried after the party yesterday that it's going to be completely empty here, but I guess you guys survived as I did. So, I make games. I've made a lot of games in the last 20 years. These are some of them that you might be familiar with. The games that are probably the most well-known, The Longest Journey, Dreamfall, and lastly, The Secret World. All those games I made while I was working at Funcom, which I did from 1994 until actually this year. And what I've done now is I've started a new studio in Oslo, Norway, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. Made a lot of games. I've helped create a lot of characters, and that's also something I feel is really important to the work I've done, the work my teams have done. We're really proud of a lot of the characters we created. I'm not going to be spending a lot of time talking about that today, but sort of the part of what we do is create worlds, and we create characters, and these are really important to the games you make. And today I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the new game I'm working on called Dreamfall Chapters. Red Thread Games is my new studio. It's a bunch of the people from that studio, some in picture and some in drawn form. That's actually a picture of our office as well in Oslo. It's in a beautiful building. We share a floor with Spotify, so there's a lot of loud music coming from those guys. And like I said, we are currently working on Dreamfall Chapters. So today I'm going to be talking about three things. So when I was asked to come here, I was asked to come here to talk about a bunch of different things, and I wasn't exactly sure how to blend all these together. I was asked to talk about Red Thread Games and starting that. I was asked about Kickstarter, about crowdfunding, and of course about Dreamfall Chapters. So this presentation is in three parts, but they're all unified. There's a theme here that I'll get around to. That's really important to me and to the games you make and to our sort of philosophy and mantra when it comes to making games. So I'll talk a little bit about that too, what sort of ties these three things together. But we'll start with Red Thread Games. So Red Thread Games was started last year with one intention: to make games with soul. And that's sort of my unifying theme for this presentation too. I'm going to explain what that means in a little bit later on. But that's sort of our company philosophy. That's our sort of a development. It's our Bible. It's sort of the word we live by. Games with soul. So with Red Thread Games, we wanted to advance interactive storytelling, to really sort of try to give that a lot of focus and to use our experience as storytellers and game developers to advance how stories are told in games. I think we've been really lucky to have worked on a lot of titles where we had freedom to tell the stories we wanted to tell stories that have been challenging, controversial, different from stories in general in games. Both The Longest Journey and Dreamfall are recognized, and I'm very thankful for that, for being, for defining stories in games. And that's because we had a lot of freedom to do that. The same with my last game, with Funcom, The Secret World, which is an MMO that really took storytelling in MMOs and tried to do something new and different with that as well. So we do have a lot of experience doing this, and our hope and plan for Red Thread Games is to continue that, to really to help interactive storytelling become more, to help make better stories in games. So we want to do that. We want to tell deep and meaningful stories. And for me personally, the last one is also really important, and it's also part of what I'll be talking about here. Exploring new platforms, new markets, new business models, and of course new sources of funding. And all of these have been really, really important to establishing Red Thread Games. But of course, the focus for this studio, for my new company, is to continue the story of the longest journey in Dreamfall. And that gives us very, very sharp focus as well, which is really important when you start a new studio, when you're becoming an indie developer, as I'm sure all of you know, is to have really, really strong focus, to know exactly what you're doing, and to do that really, really well. So that is our focus. Dreamfall Chapters is our focus. So with this company, we wanted to look into non-traditional funding, which includes personal investments. When you're starting a company, you have to sort of put a lot of time and money into it. But luckily also, being a Norwegian company, we're getting funding, we're getting some help from the Norwegian government to start up a company, and that's also been really, really critical. Without that, we would never have been able to start up. And to have a government that supports cultural projects and supports games is critical, especially in a small country like Norway. Without that, we wouldn't have much hope. But at the end of the day, Kickstarter was planned to be our primary source of funding. And of course, that's really, really scary, because with Kickstarter, there are absolutely no guarantees. To start a company with the idea that you're going to get, most of your budget through Kickstarter is completely insane. Don't ever do that. But we had our reasons for going that path, and our sort of faith that that was going to be something that would work for us. And I'll talk a little bit about the Kickstarter in a minute. A little bit of timeline on how all this happened. So last year I was working for Funcom, and Funcom of course owns The Longest Journey and Dreamfall Universe, even though those are games that I created and made with my team at Funcom. It's still a universe that is owned by Funcom. So the first thing I did was basically said, I want to start a new company and I'd like to take this license with me. And they said, okay, which is great. Doesn't usually happen. But I mean, I think everybody knew that creating a sequel to The Longest Journey and Dreamfall was not going to happen unless I took part in it. So I was fortunate enough that they agreed to that. So in September, I founded the company. In October, we raised 1 million kroner, so about 132,000 euros through the Norwegian Film Institute. Not a whole lot of money, but enough to get started. In January of this year, we began full production on Dreamfall Chapters prototype, and I'm actually going to show you a little bit of that. And in February, we began our Kickstarter campaign. So it was a very rapid progress, a very, very short timeline to get everything started. So Kickstarter. So who here knows about Kickstarter? So most people have an idea what this is. I'm surprised actually sometimes by how many people don't know about Kickstarter. But I think in the gaming industry, it's become a very, very big thing, a very, very important thing. Is there anybody here who's actually participated in a Kickstarter, run a Kickstarter? One? Yeah. So then you're gonna recognize a lot of the stuff I'm gonna be talking about here. But for those of you who don't really know too much about Kickstarter, maybe two of you, the world's largest funding platform for creative projects. Almost 100,000 projects launched with almost $500 million raised. 27 projects have crossed 1 million, and 16 of those 27 are games. Gamers have deep pockets. Dreamfall Chapters launched at Kickstarter on February 8th. And 30 days later, we had $1.5 million from 22,000 backers. So that was a result we're obviously very, very happy with. We asked for $850,000, and we got almost double that. So that really, really cemented our plans. It made us realize that now we can actually go ahead and make this game. Without Kickstarter, this would not have been possible. And we put a lot of work into ensuring that we would have at least as good a chance as possible to succeed with our Kickstarter. There are basically three things that we sort of learned or kept in mind as we did it. I mean, this was a learning process. We spent 4 or 5 months of most of my time full-time and other people helping as well. Analyzing previous Kickstarters, planning and designing this one. Everything from spreadsheets, detailing different case scenarios, to playing around with rewards, to trying to figure out how much a box would cost us, a USB stick, to trying to find exactly sort of the elements that are going to make people want to put money into a Kickstarter. It really is a full-time job, and it really is sort of a combination of pitching a new title to a publisher and selling a product to your audience, to your players. It's a massive undertaking, but it's fun. So if you guys are ever thinking about doing a Kickstarter, I can assure you it's a lot of fun to do it. It's almost like a game, because you're sitting there daily and just seeing your XP tick up, and then you have your levels that you progress past, and it's a game, but it's the hardest work you'll ever do as well. It really is a 24-hour job to run a Kickstarter. The way we approached it was that we wanted to build a lot of attention for our game before the press go on the Kickstarter. So we actually went out and we talked to the press about our Kickstarter and about Dreamfall Chapters beforehand. We shared our project plans with them. They were allowed to basically see our videos and see the page and to write our articles beforehand. This was something we felt was really important in order to have as much press as possible on the day we went live. And we did. We had articles on GameSpot and Joystick and Eurogamer and Rock Paper Shotgun and Polygon and a bunch of other sites ready to roll on launch day, which was great. It really helped. And it helped us get extremely broad coverage the first 24 hours. And you know, there's this tension, you know, when you're sitting there and you're ready to press the green button and the whole team is gathered and you have no idea how this is going to go. And I think that goes for anybody who makes a Kickstarter, regardless of how big your project is. You're thinking that this could go very, very badly. We have absolutely no idea. So I did like a horribly unmotivating speech to the team just minutes before we went live, saying, guys, this is probably going to go really badly, but just trust me, if it does, even if it does, we're going to make this game. We'll find some other way of making it, just probably not going to go well. And we had sort of a general idea of how much money we felt we needed to make in order to feel really, really happy in the first 24 hours. And I was like, that's a super optimistic number, but that would be great. You know, if we get there, we're safe, we'll manage to pull this off. In the first 24 hours, we actually doubled that number, which was incredible. We went out to lunch that day and we crossed 100,000 while we were just sitting there on the iPad and trying to eat some food and then just being completely, you know, nervous about the whole thing. So it's a great process, and I think a lot of that, of course, it helped to have a lot of attention beforehand. But of course, I mean, we're also lucky in that this is not an unknown game, and you know, this is not an unknown property. It's not anywhere as easy to go out with a brand new idea on Kickstarter and expect that to succeed. That's a lot harder. See if we got some sound there.
You're about to take the first step.
So of course, every Kickstarter has a
So, you've come to hear me tell a story.
We made a very long one for hours.
Mother of what is.
One that sort of highlighted the
You are the mother of a
the previous games in the series. And this was our
Señorita,
main selling point in a
it's
way.
important
To really highlight
to know everything.
that we're continuing the story that people have been following for the
You've been
last
helping me,
14
haven't you,
years.
Faith? The White Lady told me to.
So to play on sort of
Every
that
story
feeling
has a
of
beginning and an end. That might be true
nostalgia,
in
but
most
perhaps
cases.
more so the
Sometimes,
anticipation
however,
of seeing
the two
something
are
that you've been
one and the
waiting
same.
for.
You're unlike anyone I've ever
That
met.
was our vision with this video.
You belong to the
I'm
storyteller.
not going to play the whole thing, I'm just going to play the beginning.
What's happening? Why do we have to act?
Because the undreaming is unchained. The balance provides. The balance protects. Trust the balance and trust yourself.
I will guide you, and I will protect you as much as I can. But in the end, you are on your own.
We don't have to see the next bit because that's me talking and I'm already here, so we'll skip that. But I mean, it was really important for us to set a mood with this video. And this video also defined the project a little bit for us. It defined the game because we tried to search in the months leading up to the Kickstarter for what game we're actually making. I mean, obviously we are making a sequel to games that people have expectations for, but you know, like all game developers, we also wanted to add something to that. And I think there are a lot of ideas we had on the table, a lot of things we really wanted to do, things that were completely nuts and probably would have taken years, and things that might have been unwise. But I think, like, as we approached the Kickstarter, we realized that this is really about giving people what they've been waiting for. This is not necessarily about what all the different things we want to do. It's about really delivering what people have been waiting for. It doesn't mean that we're not going to make the game for ourselves, because I think that's really, really important. I think if you don't make your games for yourselves, you're kind of screwed. You have to be the game's biggest fans. But at the same time, too, it's really important to sort of cut away everything that people aren't really necessarily, looking for. And that goes for an adventure game as well. I mean, like, one of the things we talked about doing was that we wanted to have a bunch of environmental navigation in the game for the characters to be able to climb and jump and things like that. And not only would that have taken a lot of time and complicated the world design, we realized that when people sat down to play the game, they'd be like, I like this game, but all that jumping and climbing just feels completely unnecessary. And then if you get to that point, then you've really, really done a bad job in trying to understand what your players want. So it is about, trying to make the game that obviously you can love and that you want to make, but at the same time making sure you don't make a game that your players, your audience, does not want. So that was part of the creating of the Kickstarter for us, coming to that point and that realization. So back to the Kickstarter. We did constant updates, daily updates. We produced a lot of content, and I'll show you a little bit of some of the content we made in that Kickstarter month. Going into the Kickstarter, we showed everything we had on the project page and in the video. We didn't have that much. But the month during the Kickstarter was a full production month for the team. And the amount of stuff the team managed to create was staggering. It was really, really awesome. And something I'm really proud of the team for doing, and we'll take a look at that. We're also really lucky to get front page placement on some of the biggest sites out there, and plenty of press coverage, coverage on Unity, through Unity as well. So that was fantastic, and it gave us really a boost during some of the slow stretches. So video updates is something we did. We, along the way, we revealed the second playable character in the game. Oh, that little jump on the typewriter goes ding. It's because this guy, who's one of the writers on the team, he's never used a typewriter. He had no idea he was going to make that ding sound. So,
sitting down to start writing the dialogue.
So yeah, so this is again one of the many video updates we did during the game. This guy is one of the three playable characters in the game, and that was one of the characters we also made while we're basically creating this Kickstarter. These character models are very high resolution, very high definition, so you know it takes a lot of time. But that's one of the things that he managed to pull off, to come up with a character that really looked fantastic, and that again, you know, got players excited about it. So even though people had pledged at this point. On the Kickstarter, a lot of people increased their pledges every time we came up with something new and exciting that they really wanted to see. During the Kickstarter, we also did a live stream of the entire Dreamfall The Longest Journey game. That's us on the left there, and a tiny window on top, that's actually the whole Red Thread Games team sitting in an apartment playing the game from 6 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock the next morning, while taking Skype calls from people and drinking beer and generally just having a really good time, but oh my god, so tiring. But that was awesome. I mean, that was a fantastic way for us to connect with the players while doing this. That's the kind of, again, kind of investment you have to, you know, that you really need to do in order to reach out to your backers and your players. We, you know, brought out a lot of desktops and Facebook cover images and all those kinds of things as well, in order to really get people to spread the news, to share it, to show it, to be able to sort of proudly show their support for this game. Towards the end of the Kickstarter, we released a blooper reel that I think is actually really cool. I'm not going to show the whole thing because that thing is like 15 minutes long, but if you want to see the team make complete asses of themselves, then that's worth taking a look. We also ended up with some really cool bloopers from in-game, and all this stuff is actually, it just happened accidentally. This is actually all the soldiers in Marcuria pathing to one point and then just started to circle that point, and it just was awesome to see all this stuff happening.
Hi, I'm Ragnar Tornquist.
You don't need to see me. Yeah. That blooper reel got a really good response as well, and what we basically did was take all the outtakes from every single video update we've done and take all the worst bits and the most embarrassing bits and cut it together and give to our backers. So during the Kickstarter, I talked a little bit about how it's a game, and you know, it's more than a game, of course. I mean, we have a responsibility to the people who put money into it, and you know, it's serious, but at the same time, you sort of approach it as you do game design. It's about pushing people to really put money into the project in order to reach higher and higher, to get more XP, to get to the next level. So we designed this list of stretch goals. And that's something all Kickstarter projects do. Where our original goal, 850,000, was followed by a whole bunch of different stretch goals, and we actually managed to reach most of them. We just crossed the last one, the director's cut, within the last couple of hours before the Kickstarter ended. One goal we didn't reach was our $2 million goal, which was going to be a promise to start pre-production on The Longest Journey Home. And The Longest Journey Home is intended to be our next game after Dreamfall Chapters, a 2D point-and-click follow-up to The Longest Journey. That would sort of more directly take the story from that game and continue and conclude some of the journeys that began in that game. We didn't make that, but we still have plans to do something with this going forward. So maybe some other time we'll be talking about that. At the end of the day, I mean, we managed to get what we needed from the Kickstarter and to get started on full production of the game and to design a lot of cool boxes and do a lot of cool stuff and get really far in that crazy month. So I'll talk a little bit about that next. About Dreamfall Chapters, the game. I'm going to play you guys a trailer that we made during the Kickstarter for this game. It's something we could not have ready before the Kickstarter because We didn't have all this material. So everything you see in this trailer was built in the first 2 weeks of the Kickstarter by our really, really hardworking team. So almost nothing of this was basically existed before we started the Kickstarter.
Dreamer, the sky god has been searching for you. Where have you gone to, dreamer? Whose dreams are you dreaming? The other world lies across the divide. Arcadia is a world of magic, of mystery and chaos, a world in flux, unbound by laws. These twin worlds exist in parallel and in balance. There are those who can move freely between worlds. They are called shifters. There are few of them left now. And then there are those who can dream themselves into other worlds, existing in two places at once. They are the dreamers. There is only one known dreamer in the twin worlds. Her name is Zoe, and she is lost in the story time where every story begins, including this one. Dreaming now. Dreamer, the next chapter in your life begins.
So that was, thank you. I wish the team was here to hear that applause. I mean, they'd be really happy. But I mean, there are a couple of reasons why we managed to pull that off. First off, we're really lucky to have an experienced team working on this game. A lot of the people working on Dreamfall Chapters have experience from the previous game in the series, from Dreamfall. A lot of them have experience from The Secret World and a bunch of other titles like Age of Conan, Anarchy Online, and other games that I haven't worked on. So you have that experience, but the most important thing, and why we managed to actually pull off this trailer and the prototype that I'm going to show you in a bit, is because we're using Unity. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Unity basically allows you to be up and running and to create fantastic looking stuff very, very quickly and easily, as long as, of course, you have good assets and good people working on it. So Dreamfall Chapters, of course, is the sequel to The Longest Journey in Dreamfall, which is repeated numerous times in this presentation and in all the videos we show. It's a story and character-driven 3D adventure, a game with that tries to emotionally and socially engage the players, and I'll explain what that means. It's a game that contains exploration, dialogue, decisions. And again, I'll explain exactly what that means in a little bit. For this game, we decided to basically be both developers and publishers with the digital English language edition, which is coming out on PC and Mac Linux. And the reason we don't want to go through a publisher with this is basically to maintain a complete freedom with this story and this game. But it's also because we have the luxury of being able to do this, since we are self-funded and we have a game that is well known, that people know about. It allows us to more easily get coverage and to get attention for it and to attract customers. When it comes to non-English speaking versions, for example, the Polish version that we're doing, we have gone out to publishers and distributors in order to get help with that for localization costs and distribution in different territories. So that makes sense for us. Our Polish is not too good, so it would be hard for us to do that. And of course, we're also looking at additional platforms. In the long run, mobile platforms, although taking a game that is as feature-rich and beautiful looking as this to mobile platforms is a pretty huge endeavor, and it's something that we probably will wait a little bit with. We are currently looking at going to the PlayStation 4. And the reason for that is because I think there was some talk about that on the panel before, and Sony is really good at attracting indie developers and making the process very, very easy. And of course, Unity is coming out for PlayStation 4. So although it's not, you know, a simple button press, it's still a much simpler process than doing it, you know, to building a game from scratch or using another engine. So we're hoping to also come out on PlayStation 4 as a digital release on PSN. Yeah, I talked about localization already. We have sort of guaranteed English, Polish, French, German, Norwegian actually. There aren't a lot of games that come out in Norwegian. That's part of getting government funding. You sort of have to support the local language. And the previous games were also in Norwegian, so I think that's it's a tradition to uphold. But not a lot of people are going to play this game in Norwegian. It will be very special interest. We are planning Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, and more. Doing full localization is important on a game with a story like this one, a story that's as complex and deep. When it comes to publishing and distribution, of course, Steam has been really, really important for us, so we had to go on Steam Greenlight, as everybody has to do, regardless of who you are, if you don't have a previous relationship with Steam, and we didn't. So we had to go on Greenlight, and this was actually pretty cool. I mean, of course, we had an advantage to a lot of other games on Steam Greenlight, but before we went live, this was the curve on the previous biggest game on Steam Greenlight, and this was us. So that was pretty cool. So we managed to actually get a lot of attention, and we got 55,000 yes votes. This was kind of important for us. So first off, we really wanted to make sure that we were on Steam and can guarantee our players a Steam version of the game. But secondly, when you do a Kickstarter, you're sort of worried that you know, maybe everybody who's ever going to be playing this game has, you know, basically already paid for it through the Kickstarter. It could be that, you know, we have some fans and they're really, really keen on playing the game, but they've already put the money down. There might not be a market after that. But I think what really proved otherwise for us was seeing this, where we have already over twice as many yes votes on Steam as we have backers on Kickstarter. So that shows that there is a significant market out there for us. And again, it's just something that makes us very, very comfortable with the choices we made. So, Dreamfall Chapters. Some of the things we really wanted to focus on in this game, and it ties into the what I talked about, you know, with our new studio in the beginning as well. Advancing interactive storytelling. To grow as much as possible in that area, to make this a game that sort of emphasizes. While it's not a player-driven story, it's still a writer-driven story. It's a story where you can interact with it. You can make choices. I will talk about that a little bit in a second. A game with depth and maturity. These games have always been mature, and I'm not just talking in terms of, you know, bad language and sexual situations and things like that, but just having a maturity in the storyline as well. Expecting more from our players, and realizing also that players are willing to think a lot more than maybe most big publishers give players credit for. A game about exploration, discovery, and choice. A game with real characters and real dialogue. A game with beautiful aesthetics. An emotional connection with players. A game with soul. And again, there's that line that is really, really important for us. So what this boils down to is something we try to do all the time as well. We try to find our focus area. Try to focus on what's important for this game. And sort of our mission statement. So with this game, it's story, choice, and soul. That word does pop up a lot. And I promise I'll get to it when I wrap up exactly what I mean by that. So when it comes to the interactive storytelling part, we're trying to blend together all the different methods and mechanics that we've learned and evolved through making games with stories. We're layering the story into every part of the universe, making sure that everything you see could be a sign, a storefront, could be a minor character passing by, could be a building, it could be a trash can. All of those things are actually tied into the story. Nothing is there by accident. Everything is there as part of building a story. Whether you do it visually or through words or through sounds, that the whole world itself is telling a story. And that's something that's really, really important to us. Allowing players to discover the story and put together the jigsaw pieces. That's something that sort of evolved during working on The Secret World, is to see the story as a giant jigsaw puzzle. And especially that goes for sort of a lot of the backstory of our worlds. Not everything is laid out easily and simply and understandably. We take sort of that story and we break it off into little pieces and we scatter those pieces all over the world. And I don't mean things you can actually pick up, but it might be a description of something. Or something a character says. Or again, like a neon sign that tells a story. And all these things combined, when you put them sort of together and you start to see the big picture, you see that they combine into a bigger picture. They combine into a unifying idea of what the story and the universe is. To me, that's one of the most important ways to build story into games. To make sure your world is the story, that your world tells the story. And part of that too is to allow players to explore these large game spaces that we have without being sort of kicked through it or forced through it or driven through it by soldiers that are running behind you, or most cases with games these days, soldiers that are running ahead of you and trying to kind of catch up with. I mean, this is a game where taking your time is important. Where you have parts of the game where you can just chill out. You know, you can just walk around, immerse yourself, find quirky characters, find cool things to look at, discover the story, discover the characters. And that's sort of part of this jigsaw puzzle, giving players room and time and the right pace to experience this. So choice. That's something that's really, really important for this game. It's something we never did with The Longest Journey and Dreamfall. Both of those games were very, very linear, and Dreamfall Chapters is a linear story as well. But those games also had no player choice to speak of. But at least when it did, it was very hidden. If any of you have played those games, you might not have realized that there were sometimes different paths to getting somewhere or different scenarios that could play out. But they were never emphasized, they were never communicated really well. So this time we're taking that to a whole new level. We're giving players a lot of choices, a lot of decisions. And these are not moral choices. This is not a question of becoming evil or good. It's not a question of taking the right path or the wrong path, the light path or the dark path. This is about shades of gray. This is about human decisions. It's about making decisions that might seem inconsequential and harmless, that might become a lot bigger. The consequences might be huge towards the end of the game. This is about making choices that are really, really tough, where whatever choice you make is going to be a sacrifice. And that's a decision you're going to have to live with. And it's often messy. And it's going to be choices where people are going to hate us. And it's going to be choices where people, going to hate themselves for having made those choices. So part of that is to be able to share and discuss your choices with other people playing a game. And this is a single-player game, obviously. It's a game that you sit down in front of a computer or on the couch and play. A lot of the people play this game together with their partner or their parents or their friends. But it's still a uniquely single-player experience in terms of the actual control of the game. Which is why we're really, really keen on building a connection with the world into the game, so that you can see the choices that you've made in relation to the choices made by your friends. And you can see what choices the world has made. And for all of that to basically become what we call water cooler moments. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's sort of like this, this American idea of like watching TV, the new TV show, and getting to work the next day and gathering around the water cooler and discussing that. But we're sort of building a virtual water cooler where people can make these choices, make these tough, messy, difficult human choices, and then have an outlet, have somebody to discuss that with, have somebody to share that with. What choice did you make, and why did you make that choice? That's a completely wrong choice. What is this going to lead to? To give people a way to share this story. It's a single-player story, but it's a story that is still shared, and where the choices are basically so tough sometimes that it's good to be able to take a moment and to discuss that with other people and to realize, to find out why somebody would choose something completely opposite from what you have chosen. And then pushing the visual boundaries is important for us as well, because again, it's about the emotional connection. You don't have to have a photorealistic game in order to have an emotional connection with the audience, clearly. I mean, there are lots of ways to do that. But for us, we wanted to build a world that felt believable, characters that felt believable. They have real voices. They have real lives. They feel solid. They feel real. And a big part of that, of course, is art direction, environments, characters, animations, audio, music especially. Combining all these into, together with all the other elements, into a world that feels solid, believable, complicated, mature, difficult, messy, human. A game with soul. And if anybody had looked at our business case and our ideas up front, they would have just told us to just forget about this. You can't, there's no way you can do these things. You can't rely on all these different things to go right in order to you can't base your future on that. Well, we did. And I guess we got really lucky. But the things that have been important for us, to have support from the government, crowdfunding has been incredibly important, and that changes the way games are made. The old regime of publishers is coming to an end, and the new regime of power to developers is dawning. Crowdfunding is not going to just be Kickstarter. Kickstarter might even cease to be, but there will be other ways to get the community and the players to help create these games. Powerful technology in our hands, a democratization of technology and tools. Buying Unreal technology is expensive. Buying Unity is not. And that changes a lot of things. Digital distribution, of course. Having the option to go directly to market ourselves and not have to go through a publisher also changes everything. And of course, artistic freedom and focus. And that allows us to connect with fans, backers, community. All those things that come together to help us build this game and help us get started on this road. So we can build a rich, detailed, ambitious game without making soulless compromises. You see where this is leading, right? So, power, freedom, and purity of vision to the creators, to us and to you guys. The games we want to make and the games we want to play. Now we can do this. We don't have to necessarily do things we don't want to make. We don't have to make games we don't want to play or that people don't want to play. Like I said, true democratization of technology and tools. leading, at least in our case, to games that feel handcrafted, focused, pure, challenging, mature, different, new. Games that have like a sensibility to them, and games that have sort of an added dimension. Games with soul, and that's what we put into it. That's what we mean by it. We want our games to be oftentimes strange. Maybe our games will have the rougher edges than the latest Call of Duty, but it'll feel like a game made by people. It'll feel like a game with real people, for real people. It's not a product. It's something that's handcrafted, something that's personal, something with soul. So that's pretty much all I have today. If you want to learn more about Red Thread Games and Dreamfall Chapters, there are lots of places you can go. Go to Twitter and Facebook and our Steam page and our website and our forum and all those places. You can also, if you have any questions, because I don't think we have time for a lot of questions now, you can write me at ragnar@redthreadgames.com.